The email subject line hit me like a punch. Subject: office reorganization, your status. I clicked instinctively, heart tight, thumb trembling. Margaret, your position has been reallocated in line with Q4 strategic shifts. We appreciate your contributions. That was it. No name, no meeting, no acknowledgement that I'd given the company 10 years, stayed late every quarter, trained interns who now outranked me. I was in the middle of seasoning the roast chicken when the message came through. One I'd started preparing at 8 a.m. because Tessa, my daughter-in-law, had invited her parents over again, unannounced, and the house had to look presentable. The jazz playlist Tessa curated buzzed through the speakers, clashing with the chaos in my chest. My apron was stained with rosemary and olive oil. I wiped my hands and stood for a moment, blinking at the countertop I'd personally refinished just 2 years earlier. You don't have to do the dishes, Margaret, Tessa said from the hallway, breezing by in her linen jumpsuit, AirPods still in. Just maybe light the candles before they arrive? I nodded automatically. Of course. They arrived an hour later. Her mother, Deirdre, hugged everyone, except me. Her father gave a stiff handshake to my son, Eric, and a nod in my direction. I offered wine. I'd chosen the bottle myself, remembering Deirdre liked dry whites. We all sat at the long oak dining table I bought 12 years ago, before the layoff, before the gray hair and fake smiles. As I brought up the last wine bottle from the basement, Deirdre turned to me with a half-cocked smile. "And you are?" Eric laughed. "Oh," Tessa said lightly. "That's Margaret, our unofficial maid. Keeps the house running." There was laughter, from all of them, even Eric. I smiled too, not because it was funny, because I needed 3 seconds to keep my body from collapsing into pieces. I set the bottle down with practiced grace, walked back to the kitchen, and watched the roast chicken through the oven door until the timer beeped. My hands moved on their own, garnishing, plating, carrying, invisible. Dinner ended. They clinked their glasses, complimented the rosemary crust. No one said my name. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the edge of the bed in the guest room, no longer the master because Tessa needed an office for her Zoom coaching clients. The room I once called mine now had a ring light and a whiteboard that said, "Manifest or Miss." I stared at the ceiling and counted the years I'd been disappearing. The next morning, I woke early. I brewed the coffee, fed the cat, opened the windows. I didn't cry. I just watched Tessa glide down the stairs in her yoga pants, tapping away on her phone. She almost bumped into me. "What's this?" she asked, blinking at the keys I held out. "All the house keys. Garage, mailbox, everything." She stared. "Why?" I smiled. "Good luck paying the mortgage now." And I walked past her, past the canvas photo of Eric and Tessa on their wedding day that I paid to have framed, past the couch I chose, past the clock I installed when Eric was 10. I walked out with nothing but my purse and the coat I wore the day I brought Eric home from the hospital. He ran after me, barefoot on the driveway. "Mom, where are you going?" I didn't answer. I closed the car door gently. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was clarity. Clarity doesn't scream. It whispers, "You're done." I didn't know where I was going, but I knew exactly where I wasn't staying. Aunt Ruth's apartment smelled like time. Yellowed wallpaper, floorboards that wheezed with every step, a heater that made sounds like sighs from another decade. But it was mine, left to me when she passed, unused, unnoticed, like I had been. I dropped my bag on the small kitchen table and sat, and for the first time in 28 years, I exhaled. The first few days were a fog. I slept on the couch, as the bed frame in the bedroom leaned sideways like it had given up too. I ate peanut butter crackers and microwave soup. No one called, not Eric, not even Tessa, to ask where I'd gone. On the 4th day, I opened the storage closet upstairs to look for a light bulb and found the rusted trunk Ruth always kept under her sewing machine. Inside, a photo, a letter, and a hospital document. The baby in the picture had a different birth tag than Eric's. Michael Jameson. The letter read, "If you're reading this, I never got to tell you the truth." I think there was a switch the night Eric was born. I dropped to the floor. For years, I thought the distance between Eric and me was just generational, or me being too soft, too invisible. But what if he was never mine? I reread the letter, the details, the late-night confusion at the hospital, the quiet settlement, the name, Michael, still in this same town, same hospital, different life. I didn't feel betrayal. I felt release. What if I had never been crazy? What if I'd always known? I went to the bookstore Ruth mentioned, the Jameson Book Nook, moss green paint, antique signage. I saw him behind the counter, calm, gentle, rearranging a stack of poetry books. Michael. He didn't know me, but I knew him. And for the first time in decades, I cried. Not out of sorrow, but recognition. I didn't walk in that day, not yet. But I would, because I had been forgotten in my own home, erased in my own life, and now I was about to rewrite it. If you've ever been ignored after giving everything you had, type 1. Your story matters. The photograph on the hospital document didn't lie. It wasn't the grainy quality that caught me off guard. It was the name printed neatly under the wrinkled hospital tag. Michael Jameson. Born at 2:18 a.m., 3 minutes after Eric's supposed birth. Same wing, same night, same chaos that Ruth described in her letter. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours, the edges curled from time and neglect. My fingers shook as I unfolded the rest of the letter. Ruth's writing was clear, firm, like she had rehearsed the truth over and over in her head before putting pen to paper. There was a last-minute room switch. I thought it was odd, but we were understaffed that night. The tags got mixed up. I noticed it. I filed a report. It vanished. Months later, the hospital settled with a couple under confidentiality. There were copies of that agreement. A baby mix-up, quietly buried under legalese and money. Ruth had found it in an archive box after retirement, never dared to tell me. I felt sick. Not because I didn't love Eric, but because the ache in me finally had a name, a reason. All those years of trying and failing to connect with him. The way he brushed me aside, the way he let Tessa reduce me to wallpaper. Maybe it wasn't just emotional distance. Maybe it was something deeper. He was never mine to begin with. I barely slept that night. The wind knocked at the windows like a warning. I sat on the floor, papers splayed around me like broken glass. I kept whispering Michael's name, like saying it out loud would somehow rewind time. By morning, I was dressed and standing outside Jameson's Book Nook, the same green storefront I had passed a dozen times, never once thinking my blood lived behind that door. He was at the register, helping a woman with a stack of children's books. Mid-30s, tall, brown hair, soft eyes, glasses that slid down his nose every time he smiled. He had my posture. I stood across the street with a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold in my hand, watching the life that should have included me. Watching him laugh. Watching him move through space with the kind of peace Eric never had. He didn't know me. But I knew everything now, and I couldn't unknow it. Over the next few days, I made walking past the bookstore a routine. Sometimes I sat on the bench by the lamppost. Sometimes I pretended to read. I was studying a stranger I had every right to know. Michael ran his store with ease. He greeted each customer like an old friend, even the difficult ones. He once helped a teenager find a poetry book for a school project, even after she got his name wrong 3 times. I found myself smiling. I never smiled like that watching Eric. My joy around him had always been cautious, measured, like trying to hug a statue and hoping it might hug back. Meanwhile, I started tracking Tessa and Eric again. Their lives were still too polished. Tessa's Instagram feed was carefully curated, soft pink motivational quotes, smoothie bowls, yoga photos with captions like, "Abundance flows when you clear space for it." Their reality? Financial chaos. I pulled property records. My name was still on the house deed. Tessa had tried refinancing. Denied. No legal right. Eric hadn't worked in 6 months. Tessa's coaching brand was smoke and mirrors, a rented co-working space, leased car, paid followers, ghost clients. Every filter hid another lie. They were living in a house of cards. and I was holding the base. I wrote again, this time not in grief, but in strategy. I kept a second notebook, a meticulous record of every fake business filing, every suspicious invoice, every collaboration Tessa claimed but couldn't verify. I didn't intend to go nuclear, but I was prepared. Let them keep laughing. Let them forget who paid the foundation under their feet. They wouldn't forget much longer. On a rainy Thursday, I walked into the bookstore. I told myself it would be simple. Buy a book, say nothing, see him up close. Michael looked up when I entered and offered a soft smile. "Anything I can help you find today?" His voice was warm, familiar. I swallowed hard. Just browsing. I let my fingers drift across the spines until I saw a hardcover I recognized. Leaves of Grass. I picked it up. He walked over. "Good choice," he said. "Hard to find this edition these days." He rang it up. Our hands brushed. My stomach flipped. "You own the store?" I asked casually. "Sort of. My parents helped me start it a few years ago. They're retired now. Of course, support, a family that showed up, a family I was never allowed to be." I nodded, whispered a thanks, and left. He never asked my name, but he would one day. That night, Eric sent a message. Eric, "Mom, are you okay? 3 weeks." That was the first message. No apology, no context. I didn't respond. Instead, I stared at the blank first page of my new journal and wrote, "He called when the money dried up, not when the wine spilled on my pride." I started visiting the bookstore every 2 or 3 days. Sometimes I bought a book, sometimes just wandered. Michael began to notice me. "Back again?" he'd ask. I always smiled, just enough. We never talked about anything deep, but in that silence, a thread began to form. He didn't know I was his mother, but somehow he treated me with more care than the boy I raised. That truth held weight, enough to bury a person, but not me, because this time, I was the one carrying it, and I knew exactly when and how I'd use it. If you've ever discovered a truth that changed how you saw everything, type 2. You're not alone. I found the foreclosure warning by accident. It was buried in a digital notification from the county records office, an automated ping sent to the property owner. Me. The subject line read, "Notice of delinquent tax filing, 60-day warning." I blinked twice. They hadn't paid property taxes in nearly a year, and they still didn't know that legally. The deed remained under my name. I had never signed it over. Tessa always insisted, "We'll get around to putting it in your name, Mom. It's just paperwork." Eric nodded. "You trust us, right?" I did, until I didn't. And now their empire of brunch selfies, herbal teas, and morning mantras was balanced on a lie only I could expose. That week, I met with Angela Shaw, a no-nonsense real estate attorney downtown. She had salt and pepper hair, a spine like steel, and a Rolodex full of court clerks who owed her favors. I laid everything out on the table, figuratively and literally. Mortgage statements, tax records, deed filings, even old emails from the escrow officer who'd worked with me when I bought the house over 15 years ago. Angela looked through the documents, occasionally raising an eyebrow. "Ms. Walker, you're the sole legal owner," she confirmed. "They've been living on your property rent-free and they attempted to refinance without your consent?" "Correct," I said, calm. "Did you give them power of attorney?" "No." Angela gave a thin smile. "Then let's remind them who the house really belongs to." The following day, I filed the notice of intent to reclaim full possession. It was quiet, efficient, just like me. I didn't need shouting matches or Instagram rants. I had paperwork, and paperwork doesn't flinch. Meanwhile, I was still watching from the sidelines. Michael and I had begun talking more. Nothing profound yet, just books, weather, music. He told me about his love of indie bookstores, how he started the shop with help from his parents. He'd wanted to teach, but this place made him feel grounded. "You remind me of someone," he said once, sipping tea at the cafe next door. "Someone good, I hope?" He smiled. "Yeah, someone steady." I went home that night and cried. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in years, someone saw me without asking me to shrink. But the other side of my life was still unraveling. I wasn't done yet. I needed evidence, something sharper than tax notices and unpaid bills, something that would shatter the mask Tessa wore in front of clients and sponsors. So I hired Darren Liu, a discreet business consultant and digital forensics specialist. I told him I needed an audit on a coaching business called Thriveline, owned by Tessa Walker. Darren didn't ask why. A week later, he slid a manila folder across the table in a corner booth of a low-key diner. "Read this carefully," he said. "She's walking on cracked ice." I opened the folder. No tax filings for the last 2 quarters. Multiple clients listed with fake email domains. Invoices faked to appear as collaborations with real brands. Photo shoots staged in rented properties labeled as client success stories. Affiliate links manipulated to inflate performance metrics. "She's not just pretending to be successful," Darren said. "She's built her entire brand on fraud." My hands didn't shake, because I'd been expecting this all along. "Would this hold up?" I asked. "In front of a court or a client's legal department?" he said, sipping his black coffee. "Absolutely." I went home and printed everything. Then I mailed it anonymously to Tessa's parents. No explanation, no return address, just a note on top. "Everything you think you know is performance." 2 days later, the ripple began. Tessa's Instagram went silent. No stories, no photos. Just a vague quote posted at midnight. The truth always makes its way to the surface. Her comment section turned. Confused emojis, speculation. Then came the crash. Her website went under maintenance. A scheduled workshop was postponed indefinitely. And then the bomb. A local moms group posted that her testimonial had been faked, her name used without consent. Eric texted me that night. "Eric, did you send them something? Tessa's parents are furious. Everything's falling apart." I didn't reply. Instead, I sat at my desk, logged into the county portal, and initiated the listing process for the house. Angela would handle the rest. Let them sweat. Let them feel the foundation shift, the same way I had when they laughed and called me the Maid. The next morning, a voicemail blinked on my phone. "Tessa." Her tone was tight, brittle. "Margaret, this is all it's a misunderstanding. Ethan says you're going through something, and we're here to support you, but you're putting our lives at risk. Please, stop." Our lives. As if she ever truly let me be part of anything. As if my sacrifice had been a loan she never intended to repay. I opened my window. A breeze slid in. Cold, but clean. For the first time in years, the house wasn't choking me, because it was no longer mine. It was my weapon, and I was only getting started. If you've ever had to document everything just to prove you're not crazy, type 3. Your clarity is power. The sale closed at 9:14 a.m. At 9:16, Ethan called. I watched the screen light up from across the table at my favorite cafe, the same one where I used to sit, invisible, watching families pass by with birthday balloons and coffee trays, wondering what it felt like to belong somewhere again. Caller ID, Ethan. I let it ring until it stopped. He didn't leave a voicemail, but 2 minutes later, an email popped up. Subject: "What are you doing? Please call me." Olivia is freaking out. Of course she was. Because the mortgage she couldn't refinance had just been reclaimed. Because the house she decorated with curated neutrals and fake succulents was never hers. Because the woman she dismissed as irrelevant had legally, quietly taken everything back. 2 days later, Ethan showed up outside my apartment. I watched him through the peephole, hair uncombed, sweatshirt inside out, a man unraveling. He knocked once, then again. "Mom, please," he said softly. "Don't do this." I didn't answer. Let him sit with silence, the same silence I had lived inside for years. Angela confirmed the profit would be deposited within 10 days. The house had sold for full asking price, an all-cash offer. Tessa tried to contest the transaction, claimed contribution of value. Angela replied with one line, "Prove it." She couldn't, because you can't prove value built on manipulation. Meanwhile, Michael and I kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully. At first, we talked about books, weather, favorite smells. He liked old wood, fresh oranges, worn leather. One afternoon, we sat outside the bookstore sipping tea. He looked at me and said, "You feel familiar? I don't know why." I wanted to tell him everything then. But I waited. until the moment wouldn't feel like confession, but like truth finding its way home. The moment came on a Wednesday. Michael was shelving books near the poetry section when I walked in holding the manila envelope Ruth had left me. His smile was automatic. Back again? Actually, I said, I came to talk. He tilted his head. Sure. We stepped into the small break room behind the store. There was a kettle, a couch with a tear in the armrest, a table scratched with initials. Real life, no filter. I placed the envelope on the table. What's this? He asked, cautious but kind. I took a breath. 3 decades ago, 2 babies were born on the same night in the same hospital. One of them was me. One of them was yours. His face went still. My son was given to another family, and theirs was given to me. Silence stretched between us. He didn't speak. He opened the envelope slowly, flipping through hospital records, DNA reports, Ruth's letter with its quiet guilt. Finally, he looked up. You think I know you are. He sat back, exhaled. Then, and you're Margaret? I nodded. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know the truth. He looked down again. His thumb traced the corner of a photo Ruth had saved, the one of his birth tag, crumpled but clear. I have parents, he said. I love them. I would never ask you not to. He stood, paced once, then again. I don't know what to do with this. Me either, I whispered, but I didn't want to die carrying it alone. He looked at me, eyes glassy. You didn't have to tell me, but you did. That means something. I swallowed a lump in my throat. Does it? Yes, he said. It means we can start slow, if that's what you want. I nodded, and for the first time in decades, I felt like someone had opened a door toward me. 3 weeks later, Michael called. I want to show you something, he said. I arrived at the bookstore the next morning to find him standing by the far wall. Above the archway, a wooden sign had been hung. The next chapter. He handed me a brass key. I'm opening this wing, he said. Reading lounge, tea corner, local author nights. I want it to feel like more than a store. I want it to feel like belonging. I blinked. You want me to help open it? He smiled. I want it to be yours. Michael, you don't have to. I know, but I want to. I turned the key. The door creaked open to reveal shelves already half-stocked with memoirs, poetry, journals. A worn armchair sat near the window, a small kettle on a table. Light poured in. It smelled like hope. I walked into the center of the room and closed my eyes. This wasn't Eric's house. This was mine. And no one could take it this time. A week later, I made a donation. Anonymous, but purposeful. A portion of the house sale went to a foundation supporting women rebuilding their lives after financial and emotional abuse. I didn't need a thank you. Every time I stepped into the next chapter, I remembered exactly who I was now. Not Olivia's maid, not Eric's ghost. Margaret Walker, woman, survivor, author of her own ending. And as for Ethan, he sent one final text. Ethan, can we meet? Just once. I won't ask for anything. I just want to understand. We met at a park near the edge of town, rusted benches, a dry pond. I did a test, he said, holding an envelope like mine. Same result. He looked at me, broken. I'm not your son? You were never mine by blood, I said, but I raised you. And I failed you, he whispered. I nodded. Yes, but that doesn't mean I hate you. He asked, Is there a place for me in your life? I stood, looked out at the pond. I'll think about it. He nodded. That's more than I hoped for. As I walked away, I placed my hand briefly on his shoulder. Not closure, not forgiveness, just freedom. And it was mine now. Have you ever started over on your own terms? Type 4 if you've ever opened your own door.